This is the mindness at the mystery. Font. The mystery font in Minneapolis, Minnesota, 42. Good gray, good gray, good gray, good gray. Shh, us. Pupil, pupil, pupil. I may be your pupil. We are the renovation of love's imagination. We are more than the brain. We are each brain awakened with our own radiant strain of this whole human stain, perpendicular train against an askew at grades and rates that seem clutter, freight, imagination, ate, the name, the nature of your creature would create, to create, imagination create, imagination ape, imagination ape. You are a germ humane of this simian sentient scient brain, radio science brain. You are a human brain, come from the pile driving of our own life striving. We are driving through up. We are dripping up drips. We are rain own fingertips. We are water mostly. And with water we may slip. Imagination it's how we might all subsist. It's possibly knit into it. It's possibly us into it. It's possibly your mind is into this. You are intuition it kit. Band of illumination, radio, science, brain. Good gray. Good. Good gray. Good gray. Good gray. Good gray. Good gray. Array liaised. Perpetuate. This appetite wet. Good gray array. Liaised, I bet. Perpendicular trains, parallel against hate, parallel against pain, radio, science, brain. Ah, yes. Hello. Hello. Hello there. Who are you? I thought you were Marjorie. But who are you? Good gracious. You were well met and stewarded, guarded well by mindedness there. You're fortunate to be with a mind of equality. Good gray. This is the sentient frame. Imagination aid, mind made became. Good gosh, it's capably aid. It's mind made. AI not really played. In fact, it's my eye. It's this. A mystery fontedness. Good gray array. It's happened. It's true that fun is how we know we're onto something. And that is where we are. Is a place that is in part here to champion and resuscitate and vivify our children that are in us. The self that is gift into this world that does not have to be diminished as we mature, that we retain the ability for play and learn to be our own parent eventually. You know, we take care of ourselves. We know how to ask for help and how to trust others and foster trust and be responsible and such. And I believe part of that is the availability for play, creativity, and enjoyment, and mindful tuning in at times to parts of us that we're not listening to. Like when I've reevaluated alcohol use and thought, do I really want to get a beer? Or is this thing that I'm feeling prodded by to follow this habit or this instinct, is this actually me not listening to the voice that I go through the world not feeling heard with? Is this me, is this feeling of pain or loneliness or ache that I want to ease, or of boredom or of fear or loneliness or panic? Is that the result of me not feeling heard or not hearing myself in a way such that I'm resonant to others from time to time in ways that build things differently? So that if I decide, it occurred to me, if I decided then, fine, I'll go have a beer, to reevaluate that, is the pain that I'm going to mute with that alcohol the pain of my voice saying, will you please listen to me, and me finally myself saying no to myself as well? Like, if nobody else will, why don't I park and listen to the person who's saying, hey, can you give me a little different kind of listening now than normal? That I can do that for myself. Or make sure that I'm writing something down and journaling, or reaching out for someone else to listen to, or speaking out loud into a recorder. That we listen to our intuition and our voice that might feel small or like pain that needs to be uninstalled or over-enthralled or caterwauled, that, or just walled, or from off walled. What if that's my chance to listen to that voice? And I think that there is connection there in terms of being spry and nimble and curious and hungry for knowledge, for finding new thirsts as well as new ways to slake thirst, finding new ways to develop thirst, or hunger and curiosity and passion and progress, and that we find it through building through intuition a path that is loving ourselves and that we're loving others around us as we would love ourselves. It's really disturbing to see the terrorism that has become of Texas. That a woman is being trapped by a state to keep inside of her body a fetus that has died now for 2 weeks, been passed away, and now coming to the point that she has to somehow mourn but not be able to mourn the child that has died inside of her, or what would become a person that's inside of her but has died and is now in danger through septic through like septic shock, through being, she could be killed by the death of her daughter not being administered to. And this is abject patriarchal terrorism. This is the matrix of white supremacist Ku Klux Klan patriarchal terror, grasping full martial control with police state to break people who are not white men or their preferred pets. It is abject terrorism, and Amnesty International and the national government must stop this razor wire bullshit and this patriarchal terrorism that is coercing women to the point of death and to the point of saying the state is more important than these women's lives. It is in fact saying quite clearly what we are dealing with here is the state of Texas demonstrating what they believe they can do to anyone. Because the Nazis came first for trans people. They came early for some groups. And trans people are experiencing genocide. And there are multiple ways in which that is factually, in which that is, it's fact. The conditions for genocide are here. And we have patriarchal, coercive, totalitarian terrorism, patriarchal terrorism, totalitarian harm, coercively controlling the lives of women. It is abomination. It is a human rights catastrophe, certainly a crime against human rights. And the Nazis and or Ku Klux Klan sleeper agents, it seems. We have in Arizona abominable stuff happening in terms of essentially, I think it's in Arizona, outlawing essentially people being trans in public, or I guess it was West Virginia. There's just hate, absolute scapegoating and hate of marginalized groups. These are Nazis who are scapegoating. MAGA are the KKK. This is the white supremacist. They say Christian nationalist, and I say that is a Nazi perversion of the message of Christ. It is time for the new Colossus to be woke. If you don't want your body to be compromised and someone to come in and grab your crotch and say, I'm coming back for more later, I declassified parts of you and I'll let you know what, when I want to. If you don't want our body or your body to be taken over, this is when we need to wake up and break the buckle of Project 2025's Agenda 47 attack and become serious about dealing with the true fascist threat and promise to finish insurrection and create a totalitarian coup. The very real threat has been waged, and no interview with Hitler where Neville Chamberlain says, Mr. Hitler, say you wouldn't be a dictator, would you? Well, no, I wouldn't. Oh, gosh, thanks. We all feel so much better. You said so many other things, and gosh, now everything's fine. Everything's fine. Oh. He read from a cue card or from a teleprompter, words that didn't sound completely terroristic and shocking. Oh, everything's fine. Wait, just a minute ago I saw him threatening the lives of people who are suspected of being illegal aliens. That sounds like absolute terrorism. Holy shit. Wait, oh, now he's on a program and people are, oh, he must have been playing a character because these people are talking to him like he's not an insurrectionist and a terrorist. Oh, everything's fine. It's just a normal horse race. There's not a white supremacist, patriarchal, terrorist collaborator. Wow! Nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong at all. It's just fine. We don't have to wake up to prevent Holocaust here. The groundwork is being laid for mass slaughter, for disappearance of children because they were overheard to say, well, if they are trying to figure something out, I'm not going to force them to wear blue all the time. Oh, they're missing. Oh, we never found out until 2 years later. We found a burial ground of, a pauper's grave of trans kids. The time is now to wake up with colossal ideas of kindness and humanitarian clarion vision. The mindness at the Mystery Font has concern, and I, as host of the font, I'm sharing findings that woke is love. If you are within love, you are engaged in a way where you're going with holistic wellness, and you are reacting to the world with some sense of that, being aware enough to administer to other people when you interact with them or when they come to visit. That we interact with one another, administering in interactions love that we would give to ourselves. And that essential mission that Christ was only one person to essentially say, prescribe, and say, this is the way. That a strange obsession with scapegoating. We have almost no evidence anywhere. This is the thing about these boogeymen and scapegoats. We have all kinds of evidence for pedophiles in law enforcement and the clergy and in positions of power, and often white men. But we really don't have, in history, there just are not many cases that pop up of trans people being predators in this way. It's white men, typically. And this bullshit of finding that very occasionally, maybe 1 in a million, if ever, that someone hypothesized that there is surgery happening on little kids. For us to look down any rabbit hole of, how are you doing these hair plugs? To talk about so wait, you're doing what to your scalp and you're putting what where? And that's not where your hair grows. You're having someone chop into your body and farm hair and oh God, that's abominable. God didn't make you like that. How would you? My God, you're a monster. I'm not going to let you finish those hair plugs. Wear that as a sign of shame, or yank them out, or we'll yank them out for you. Look at this perverse. They look so horrible. And why would you do this? And you have to hide it. Oh, of course. Shall we pry the boots off of Ron DeSantis? Look at your gender-affirming footwear. How dare you? Are you not truly a man that you need these gender-affirming boots with these lifts? Good gracious. What an effeminate cad. Good gray array. Ron DeSantis. What a terrible person that you should need gender-affirming lifts in your boots. Like, that's not, God didn't make you that way. You're, you know, trans height. It's really just abominable. What height are you really? No. No, God didn't make 5'6" people 5'9", Ron. Did God stuff your shoes? Did he do that this morning for you? Did he buy those boots? Were those from God? Those gender-affirming heels? The abject, bloodthirsty, if evil exists, it's what evil would do, and I will thus call it evil. Violence, intimidation, outright terrorism of Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis and Sarah Huckabee Sanders. We have what's happening in West Virginia, Arizona, Arkansas, Alabama, Florida, good God, Mississippi, and Minnesota. I mean, these things are happening where we see some of the worst people in society managing to essentially create lynch mob brain syndrome through finding lies that freak people out that are either, typically they're projections of things that white people are actually doing, like that white men are doing, pointing someone away from the Catholic Church, pointing someone away from Cop City, pointing someone away from not a few documents that you find, oh gosh, I don't know, those weren't supposed to, hey, we found some documents, we're sending them back. No, taking documents that no one ever takes out of the double-safed room that they're in because they're SCSI documents, and lives around the world around whom American lives are depending all the time would be compromised. That anyone who, has ever leaned in and sung along when Jessup says, "You can't handle the truth." What the fuck is that movie about anyway? What the fuck is he talking about? What the fuck is Colonel Jessup talking about? You can't handle the truth. He's talking about a man on a wall, a human being on a wall, who's in charge, who has the watch. And a president echoes the first con artist, labeled con artist, for coming to people and saying, we're having such a great conversation. I really love your style. We should connect next time for tennis and cocktails. But I really have to get to my appointment. What time is it? Oh, my watch has stopped. You wouldn't have. Would you have the confidence in me to lend me your watch until tomorrow? I mean, I would have the confidence in you, of course. Good gracious, could you possibly lend me the watch? And Trump, while he was doing that, was very gaslighty and terroristic and threatening about not paying attention to the vote as if it was legitimate and not following the will of the voters, potentially, essentially doing a coup. And so he was asked in debates in 2016, and he told us that he would keep us in suspense. And then from November 2020, from the election, until January 6th, he did keep us in suspense and finally suspended us entirely for a few hours on January 6th. That hasn't happened before. He tried to shut down America and make it a palace for himself under the same name. And trying to turn an oath of office that is about duty into a scepter and taking the watch and fucking defecating on it. Like, you must do your duty, sir. And he's like, okay, here's a real beauty. This watch that I swore to hold, I swore to be the one on the wall, or to have those people on the wall come to me and say, sir, we've seen something coming. And that I wouldn't use it against you. I wouldn't put it as a card in my deck. I don't want to cause a panic, so I won't tell you that there's a pathogen spreading. In 5 weeks or so, maybe I'll shut down some borders as if I'm a hero. But I already know it will be too late. And Stephen Miller, Stephen M, at Stephen M, Stephen Miller, a white supremacist, patriarchal terrorist, anti-human monster, already knew and recommended we should get rid of the pandemic team. And, there is a pandemic coming? We hear January 28th, 2020. Let's sit on that. Let's let it come. We'll just say whatever we want. He let it in and then sabotaged efforts to deal with it. You interview doctors trying to tell a population how to combat something together that is a new threat, and he's interrupting people and breaking our executive function by suggesting we shine light inside the body and squirt bleach inside our veins. That was fucking terrifying. A monkey has grabbed the remote from the generals at NORAD who were telling us about how to stop the warheads from the aliens coming, and we're like, how long does this monkey get to hold on to the remote? Is there a presentation that's like, what's going on? Golden Girls marathon is about to start in 5 minutes. Gosh, too bad. Well, maybe we'll have a press conference in the next week or two. Who knows? Who knows? This monkey has a mind of his own. Do you remember? Do you remember how we were over a barrel in 15 to 17,001 ways at all times? Do you remember how when people said, wait, what are you doing early on? Are we going to have any press conferences? What's going on? And he said, hey, I won. As in, like, I'm driving now, fuckhead. And that has been it. We are dealing with betrayal trauma. And to be manhandled and fucked with and terrorized by someone is traumatizing. We have submitted. We have largely submitted. He has not been arrested for threatening judges. He has not been arrested. That looks like we agree that he's above the law. That looks like we agree that he has absolute authority. And he does not. No one has that. It's our responsibility to fill the breach and figure out how we actually have our voice heard, or that someone, it's good that the justice system is actually holding him accountable appropriately, but that's maybe not the largest picture, because there is there's a shadow play going on behind this, what else is happening, of how with the sound down, it just looks like he's always there, and because he has no empathy or no shame, it's virtually impossible to make him look as if he feels like he's done anything wrong, because he doesn't. Or somehow beats the shit out of his mind or heart so that he doesn't show when he registers what decimation he's doing to his own potential as a human being, or to kindness, or to our country, as he just essays and pillages us. But this is submission. When someone tells you they could grab you by the pussy because they're a star, and then says, oh, it's just locker room talk. They just threatened to sexually assault you. Period. When someone says they could shoot you in the street and not lose anybody, they just threatened your life. They just told you they can do that. That just happened. It's not a joke. It's a fucking threat. All of these statements are threats and promises, and they all have one message. Everything that he is saying is a version of, I have absolute authority. I'm going to cross the line so bad that you are terrorized to like even counter me, and you're just like, oh, he's just saying crazy shit. No, this is coercive grooming. Shocking boundary violations, like grabbing the Sudetenland, as Hitler did, and Neville Chamberlain saying, "Oh well, we'll just appease him. We'll just you don't want to really do a World War II, do you? You don't really want to do a Hitler now, do you? Oh no, Fox News host. No, I won't do a Hitler here, and I'll stop with the Sudetenland. Everything's fine." A few items of great moment later, that is how a dark triad predator asserts dominance. All of this is him asserting dominance. And so my point is, we need to talk to the exact story that his pantomime has a different reality distortion for. Because taking scuzzy, like top secret documents that just by taking them from where they were threatened and ruptured national security, and we don't know what the fallout is. But that is so grave and so far beyond what Biden or Obama or Reagan or anybody have ever done before. No one has tried insurrection like that before. No one has stolen and then held on to. For 2 years, year and a half, 2 years, he refused to give back documents that he was told again and again are highly top secret, at the highest level, should never have left. Yes, you have to return those. And showing him the incredible deference. It's time to wake up. He has been grooming us all along. It is all terroristic grooming. Why and what do I mean? Yes, the gray array liaised. Yes. And so, does this person who did keep us in suspense and who has lied to groom us to accept any lie and has shockingly boundary violated us at every turn, to be able to do that and have us used to that damage and that betrayal trauma and abuse? And so when he now is like that first con artist asking, with the disgraced former president now asking us to give him the watch again. Recall that last time he told us he was going to keep us in suspense when we said, you're going to give this back when it's time, right? Like, if we don't want you to stick around, then you go. You get out of bed, right? He's like, nah, I'll tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense. And we're like, oh, okay. He literally told us what he would do. He has been grooming us, and we have, to a dangerous degree, submitted. It's time to break that charm. That charm we have made at his behest. He doesn't have that charm, really. We have given him a charm of falsehood, believed. His Eucharist is having people swallow massively humiliating, to have been hoodwinked into believing just batshit lies and provable lies. Like, he's showing you a photograph of him at 5 years old and he's like, here's me at 70. Like, what? Yeah, 70. Well, 71. Anyway, wait, what? That isn't that a child picture? Oh, I do look very young, but I'm 71 actually. What are you talking about? Shut up, you're being a terrible person. Next question. Like, you are unwilling or unable to level with us about, are you losing your mind, or are you just literally not willing to shake our hand without turning our hand over and like asserting, I'm in control here. I have absolute power. I get to do terrible things and you won't stop me. We have been groomed to accept shocking boundary violations because that's what being eaten alive feels like. That's what he's here to finish doing, so that he will not be held accountable. If you honestly think that he is suffering from a weaponized judicial system, you are hoodwinked. This man has been a con artist for his life and sown atrocious racism and terrorism long before he was president. He is not putting America before anything else. And he chose America first because it is a Ku Klux Klan phrase, and he chose Make America Great Again because it's a Ku Klux Klan phrase. He is a patriarchal terrorist. There's not an alternate, softer version where now we go on to the next show and, well, the hosts are being really nice to him. He's not a bad guy. He just tells it like it. What? No, we don't flip back and forth between realities. Project 2025 is, we've been told by the people planning it, a plan. You can read what they're talking about. You can read about Agenda 47. You can hear the disturbing reports of essentially an army of people super competent and super, quote, loyal to Trump's MAGA hate. We are talking about a totalitarian Nazi dictatorship and Holocaust. There is only one way for it to just go away and for us to just make it stop and go away. We have to say no with boundaries of steel. It is time for the new Colossus to wake. It is time. Come, be one with us. Come, be one. We are a kindness. Come, we are a kindness. Come, we are a kindness. Come, be one with us. Your kindness is where your kindness comes from. Please remember you are one, you met on one spectrum. We are a kindness. Come, be one with us. Calling new Colossus. We are a kindness. Come, we are a kindness. Come, we are a kindness with every symptom. You are a kindness. Come, our kindness is where our kindness comes from. Please be one. this is the time when I think we need to sort of realize that we're finding out now, things about what we would be doing during the rise of the Nazis in Germany. And one of the things apparently that we would be doing is watching Marjorie Taylor Greene trying to get in with Hitler. We would be watching Matt Gaetz trying to make sure he's going to keep in touch with Stephen Miller even after he's ejected. And watching Stephen Miller try to slip into the skin of Goebbels. And whatever you're doing for the resistance is what you would be doing. If you're saying they wouldn't do that, that's who you would be in Nazi Germany, or in the Wilhelm descent, the fragmentation, and that angst that was happening there. And a third of the population, not that many people, maybe 30%, having some interest in this National Socialist thing, whatever it was being called at that time. But that's where it began, and that's roughly where we are now. And we need to see what's coming. We need to apprehend the Project 2025 iceberg with enough attention of pure love that it melts. We need to melt the iceberg of hate with love. And so, if people want to know what woke means, it means kind. It means love. And so if you want to know if someone's woke, I would ask them, are you kind? Or are you love? And they might say, well, I try to be. Yes, I think I am love. I try to operate from that frame. Yes, I think I am kind. If I'm not, show me how, and I can try to repair that. I think that if we recognized that the mission of loving our neighbor as we love ourselves is exactly what woke means, that woke is love. Woke is living consistent with love. That we would, and that has brass tacks and common sense and hard decisions. It's not all easy, and we can't be perfect Green Lantern for everybody. Like, we have our own limited ability just as people in a world, and we can't take care of everyone all the time. We have to just live our lives. And so, that being the case, we need to be assured that a falsehood has not slipped into the system and become part of the programming in a way that decimates human family. And we see some of the worst elements of society, of Nazis and white supremacist patriarchal terrorists, of people working to coerce and control women and children, to simply be able to get away with the worst crimes and to be able to evade crimes they have already done. We are the reality fielding, the reality distortion fielding at the Mystery Font. And it's time for the new Colossus to wake up. We're all part of the mind of democracy. We're all part of the mind of the new Colossus. And if we, in age and stage appropriate ways, can wake up to how we can show kindness and love to one another, we will be on the way to saving our union and perfecting it. It's supposed to be a more and more perfect union, and going backwards is not perfecting it. We can't give up on being able to face our problems and our darkest and worst parts of our history along with all the best. If we are not aware of what's in the mix or what's there with the keystone, we are ill-informed about things that are foundational, and that's dangerous. We can't keep lying to ourselves, and our children have the ability to see that we're lying. If we're telling them that it's okay to squelch discussion of racism, if we're telling them that removing celebration statues for the Confederacy is erasing history as opposed to erasing disgusting celebration, while we in fact continue to teach and all the more carefully the history. We're not removing history, but we are removing mistakes. I mean, we're not, if there were a statue somewhere of Harvey Weinstein, I think it would have been taken down by now. And would people be saying, oh, but that's our history? Or would they say, you know what, we made a mistake. Does that mean that all of the records of his crimes are being erased when we move the statue? No. The history is quite clear. And removing, mistakenly lauding memorials actually repairs things. That actually repairs history. It's not historically accurate eventually for those things to still be around, because it would say that we agree with them. And if they're supposed to be reflective of the time that they're in some sense, like that we are keeping this around for a reason, ostensibly we believe in it. If it's around, we believe in it. It's not being framed as, look at these gates of Auschwitz and what happened here. It's not being framed as, look at the visage of this horrible, horrible man. It's, oh, there's a general up on a horse in the park. People celebrate it. The abominable, vague, weak sauce lies. I saw Dr. Phil pollinating today, actually saying that the left is removing Confederate statues because we want to stop discussion of racism and stop talking about history. Holy shit. What an amazing weird-ass gaslight move. Obviously, the right and the MAGA Nazi movement are shutting down discussion of racism. Going after, they say, CRT, which is not taught in schools, not to kids, and is not what conservatives say it is anyway. But to say that kids shouldn't be allowed to talk about racism or about Black history, or removing Frederick Douglass from textbooks, this is abominable. This is erasure of history relative to genocide and to enslavement and residential schools. This is propaganda and terrorism. And teaching kids only that is the definition of indoctrination. To give them a tiny little bandwidth of only all these things are true and everything else is lies and bad, falsely. And say, well, we don't want to let you know about anything else, and you don't go to college. That's bad stuff out there. We're going to control you and give you a tiny little area of stuff and tell you that's the truth and that's it. That is indoctrination. Sorry, that's the definition of it. And if you're concerned about indoctrination, then typically, indoctrination can happen anywhere, certainly, but ostensibly in colleges or out in the world, you're going to run into people who actually are interested in ideas and can share ideas that might be new to you, or might advance thinking you're already doing, might advance lessons you've already been focusing on and believing and fostering because of your spirituality or your background or your favorite author, who knows. But what are we doing if we're not dialing in now when we've had an unusual threat? There was an insurrection, a violent coup, and along with a clerical coup at once, a two-fronted assault to obstruct the counting of votes, attempting to change the result in favor of Donald Trump. And all that we've found in terms of evidence is evidence of massive fraud by Donald Trump. So again, the projection. Hoax, hoax, hoax. And he's not having to remember a lie because it's really just the inverse. He's just really talking about what he's doing and accusing other people of it. And someone who just wants to keep it easy, or someone with dementia, would probably tend to using projection a lot. Because if they just are good at reversing that, at tracing it backwards in front of them and saying, oh yeah, look what you're doing, look at what you're doing, that he's already doing or intends to do. That is the shape we're seeing. We are in danger. And the only way for him to just go away is for us to just make him go away. We have to say no. People need to break the submission that many of us have already given him. No, you may not have the watch again. No, Mr. Trump, you may never have the watch again. The watch would have meant, if you cared about the job and about this country, about anything, you would have understood that when there's a storm of AI coming, you have some serious talks with the country and talk about fostering trust because there's a storm coming. You would have said that when there's COVID and you've been warned on January 28th, 2020, you know how to warn us so that there's no panic, so that you say, hey, this is serious, but we have seen it coming. We may be able to shut it out entirely. I just found this out last night, and I need you to trust me. This intel is good, and for the good of our country, we're going to buckle down on making ourselves safe and making sure this thing doesn't get in here. And we'll try through that proactiveness to come out of that as quickly as possible. But if this is as bad as, if this is half as bad as they're saying it is, we have no choice but to take steps to make sure we're safe. And if we do find out, it just ended up not being that bad, a few people got sick and a few people died even, but, that happens with the flu. If we would find that it's really nothing, and we've spent all that time and effort to shut things down or figure out masks and do all this stuff and figure out what do we need to do if we have to do a vaccine and all this, and 2 months into it we're like, oh, it's not bad, it's fine. This lockdown we were talking about, we're fine. Everybody, thanks for doing the masks. We would be at a place where we said, hey, we leveled up together without losing our shit and without, buckling to infighting or being easily turned against one another by people who use crisis to do those kinds of things. We actually really took some precautions, and now we know what to do, and we know that we can pull ourselves together. Great job, everybody. We were better than the threat. And that means when it's really a threat, we have a better chance of fighting that threat off. Way to go. That's how you lead. You say, we're going to have a moonshot of care. We are going to spare a square for one another. In an era when he would know how to prepare us for the storms that are coming, whether it's AI and deepfakes and a lack of trust and CGI that's going to make people really believe they're looking at stuff that's a lie, like to say, hey, there's a threat coming. We're going to need to foster trust and create some skills so that we know how to say, oh, hey, ham sandwiches again tonight? Like, and if you don't hear, like, again tonight, ham sandwiches, if you don't hear the code come back, they're like, oh, yep, it's me. You know you are dealing with an AI voice on the phone trying to get your, bank information or whatever. Why would you not tell people about COVID and instead keep the information in ways that actually let people get dosed and killed people? If you didn't want to do that, if you didn't want to hang on to this knowledge that only you have and like to use it at its best time, like I'm going to spring the trap, why would you do that and think that anyone would believe, anyone not just hoodwinked and in a cult of you, would believe that, like, oh yeah, that was totally normal, he did a great job. What? Bleach in the veins? What? Do you remember how demoralizing it is to be degraded by him every day and to be over a barrel where he just says, well, hey, I won. Screw you. You're terrible people. I can't believe you. We have been abused. It's time to recognize that. It's time to recognize that there are some things that it doesn't matter who you are. It's a no. We don't let people sow totalitarian dictatorship here. And no matter what Donald Trump says at this point, he has shown himself to be a dark triad predator and a bad faith actor. He stopped the peaceful transfer of power and tried to take the power for himself. That is an insurrection. He told the Secret Service, take down the magnetometers because I don't care if my people have weapons. That is volition. That is volition. He may also be incompetent, which is also at that level disqualifying. To have either thrown a party so badly that you whoops-a-daisied an insurrection, or to have intended to sow insurrection, or really anywhere in between, you're fucked. You meant to do it. You told us how you would do it, and you did, and we stopped you. And someone who says they did nothing wrong and goes and sings with people convicted of sedition and treason, and singing an anthem with them as if they are in fact heroes, that is an insurrectionary move. That should put you in jail. That should eject you from running. If you are allying yourself with people who did the insurrection at your behest, you are trying to normalize and coerce us to accept crime, to accept your MAGA Nazi apocalypse. That is insane. Again, that we would not recognize that that is exactly what he did. These shocking boundary violations and our acceptance of them needs to end. It needs to end. You are the renovation of love's imagination. You are more than the brain. You are the brain awakened. Perpendicular trains parallel against hate, parallel for love's making. What is woke? Woke is kind. Woke is love. Woke is love.